Moving. What's not to love? You get to spend hours putting tons of things into boxes just to spend hours taking all of them back out. You get to move giant pieces of furniture through tiny little door frames, and you have to bribe any friend or family member within a 100-mile radius to help you make that move. And during all of this, you know what you probably forgot to do? Is to update immigration about your new address. So this video is to remind you to update immigration that first week that you are changing your address, that you have told them and told them correctly so that you don't have any errors in your application moving forward. Immigration has very specific requirements about how and when to file a change of address. If you're not sure exactly how seriously they take this, then take a look at the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals decision from earlier this month, in which it upheld the deportation of a man who, when he entered the United States, he had reported his address to immigration. However, it was mistyped by just one letter, and he signed his name to that. And because he signed his name to it, even though it was just an error, an innocent error, a mistake, a typo, the court said it was still your obligation to correct this. It was still your obligation to timely update or change your address. And because you failed to do this, your deportation is upheld. So make sure that you're not missing any beat in how to update or change your address with immigration. Now, this typically is going to apply to non-US citizens, unless maybe you have an A or a G visa, or you are a Visa Waiver entrant. However, even US citizens can have this requirement if the US citizen has a pending application or petition, or maybe they're the bond obligor or the financial sponsor, in which case, in all of those scenarios, you need to be filing this change of address. So let's start with USCIS, or US Citizenship and Immigration Services applications. So this is an agency that handles all kinds of applications and petitions. So think marriage petition, maybe change of status, maybe naturalization application. Any of these scenarios, you need to be filing a change of address with that agency itself. And so if you have a USCIS online account and you can log in yourself, then you can just do it through that account online, no problem. Even if you don't have a USCIS account number, you can still file this change of address online on the USCIS webpage. You just go to their online AR11 form and you can do it right there. Now, at the very beginning, you're going to have an option whether you have a pending application or petition, or you're waiting for a document to be delivered, or if you don't have anything pending, but you just need to change your address. So if you do have something pending, then you need to select the option for yes, and then follow the prompts and complete all of the information on that page. Now, you will need a copy of your receipt notice to fill this out, unless you just happen to have your receipt number memorized, in which case you just put your receipt number in there, plus all the other information it's asking for, like your name and your date of birth, who the petitioner is and who the beneficiary is, and you complete that application form. Now, you will need to keep a record of everything you're doing. So make sure you keep a printout of the new address that you're sending them, as well as a confirmation page showing that you have actually filed this AR11 online. Now, you will get a record in your email, but go ahead as you're going through this process and just take screenshots as you're going through, just in case something goes wrong and you don't get that email. Even if you don't have anything pending with immigration, you can still use this same online filing form. You just change your answer to that first question from a yes to a no, in that maybe you have nothing pending, maybe you're already a permanent resident, for example, but you still need to update your address with immigration per the requirements. And so you go on there, you fill out the form, put in your old address and your new address, you put in your A number, and then you can complete that form and file it right there. So by far the easiest way to change your address is to do this online. But if for some reason you just don't want to, or maybe you can't do it, then you can print off the form and mail it in to immigration directly. Just make sure you're sending it to the correct service center. And when you drop it in the mail, don't just put it with a regular stamp. Make sure you're sending it with a tracking number and that you're actually tracking it to make sure that it got delivered. And keep in mind that this is not something that you can just do whenever. You should do this within the first 2 weeks of moving to your new address. Don't prolong it, do it right at the beginning, because if you don't change your address and you miss receiving an important piece of mail from immigration, that can be the end of your case unless you have proof that you timely and properly filed your change of address. Now, even though most application types filed with USCIS or petition types filed with USCIS can be changed online, there are some application forms that cannot. So those that require an extra level of confidentiality, so let's say maybe it's a U visa for a victim of a crime, or a T visa for a trafficking victim, or maybe a VAWA for someone that has been the victim of certain types of domestic violence, in which case those have to be filed directly with the service center that's handling that case, usually through a paper filing, unless you have an attorney, and that attorney can do it by email. But I'm going to link again to that below so that you can go to the USCIS website and see which of these cases must be filed by paper. Keep that in mind as you're going through the online AR11 form, because it does sometimes show an option for filing these application types online. But even if it goes through, it does not mean that it has been processed correctly. So it's really important that you're confident that you're filing this the correct way. Take note that if you are filing the AR11 change of address by paper, the paper document that prints out is going to have one specific address on it. That is not necessarily the address that you need to be using to send the notice of your address change. So in most cases, I would say ignore the address on that printout document for the AR11. Instead, look on the USCIS website at the application type that you have filed, and then follow the steps for that one. It's typically set out pretty plainly in front of you. So for example, it'll say that if you have a U visa or a VAWA petition, then this is the location where you send it to. And when in doubt, look at your most recent receipt notice that you've received from immigration. And at the bottom of that notice, it's going to have the service center where your case is being adjudicated. And you can send it to there in addition to the generic address that you're finding on the website, just to cover all of your bases. If you're in removal proceedings, even if you've already filed that change of address with USCIS, you also have to file it with the court directly. And like everything else you file with the court, you have to send a duplicate copy to Homeland Security, to the Office of Principal Legal Advisor. So just remember that going in, you should be changing your address, not just with the court, but also with Homeland Security. So to file the change of address with the court, you can do it online or you can do it with a paper filing. As with everything for the change of address, if you have an option to do it online, I recommend doing it that way. It's a whole lot easier, plus you get that instant confirmation of having filed it. So for the online filing, you go to the EOIR website and you can do it from there. You select the court location where the court hearing is being held, and you input your information from there. At the end of it, you'll be able to print a copy of what you filed, and you can take that copy, one for your records and the other you send to Homeland Security. If you prefer to do a paper filing, then what you can do is you go to, again, the EOIR website, and you find the court listing for the court where your case is being held. Next to that court's name, you're going to see a PDF link where you can download the PDF and fill out your information for the change of address. And then again, you'll mail that into the court, and you'll mail one into Homeland Security. If you posted an immigration bond for somebody, or maybe you posted an immigration bond for yourself, you also need to be updating your address as the bond obligor. So you do that on ICE form I-333, and you can download that from the ICE website. Now this is currently done by paper, so you do have to print it out, sign it, and mail it in, but it's really important, especially later on if you want to get notice of the bond cancellation, any reporting requirements, and if you want to be able to get that money back at the end of it, then make sure that you are updating your address so that you get in the mail those notices from ICE. Now, if you have regular report-in dates or check-in dates with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, with their office, then you also need to make sure that you're updating your address with them, especially if you've got maybe a tracking device that's on you, or you're just checking in by phone. Either way, make sure that your address is also updated with that office. So you can do that in person if you live close and you just want to travel in there to do it in person. But if you do that, make sure that you've got a record of having done it. But the easiest thing is, as of June of this year, you can now file this online. And it's a very easy, maybe 1 or 2 minutes to complete it on the ICE website, to fill out that form online and submit it to them. And then again, you can just print out the confirmation that you have changed your address with them. Now, if you have a case pending with the Department of State, for example, with a petition that you filed for an immigrant visa where you're going to be consular processing into the United States, and while you're doing that, your address has changed, then the best way to update that is to send a notice, just a short message through the NVC inquiry page online, and then they can update it there. But if your case has already been forwarded to the embassy, then you're going to need to update the embassy. And probably the best place to do that is when you go to your biometrics appointment, you can notify them there that the mailing address has changed. The reason this is so important is that when you enter the US as an immigrant and your green card is going to be mailed to you, it is going to be mailed to that last address that they have on record. And you definitely don't want that green card going to the wrong location. So before you get to that process, before you enter the US, make sure that you are letting them know about your new address. If you haven't, then you can go to the USCIS webpage and update it there. And you just select that first option saying that yes, that you have something pending, you are waiting for a document to be delivered, and you enter the information there. The receipt number that you use in that situation is the receipt number that you received when you paid for the production of your green card. A lot of applications are filed with financial sponsorship paperwork on Form I-864. So maybe you are the financial sponsor or co-sponsor and you've changed your address. Well, you also have an obligation to update your address with immigration. And to do that, you actually need to print out a physical form and sign it and mail it in. That can be found on the USCIS website. It's Form I-865. Again, very simple information to update your address, but you do need to do that so that any notices can be sent directly to your address. Depending on the agency you're dealing with, you need to file your change of address within 5 to 10 business days. So the best rule of thumb is just the same week you move, go ahead and file your change of address. Keep records of everything. In most things with immigration, the applicant bears the burden of proof. So if you don't have proof that you changed your address and you changed it correctly, then you don't really have a leg to stand on. Change your address for each and every pending petition or application or matter before immigration. And if there are multiple parties, then make sure you change it for each party. Changing your residential address could actually impact your case depending on the kind of case that you have. So if you're not sure whether or not it will, then before you actually make that move, I suggest that you talk to an immigration attorney. If you do have an immigration attorney, make sure that they know about your new address, if not just before you move, then just after. Thanks again for listening. I hope you liked this. If you did, hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.